What makes One More Time stand out against other events in Ibiza?
The whole emphasis is just making it fun. It was never really meant to be a serious event. It wasn't something that was created as a business. There's a whole, 25 years of music to celebrate. Why don't we put something together and have a bit of fun with it and see where it goes? And quickly went from an idea to a holiday to a weekly club brand,
Got Kevin and Perry coming up, which is looking like another great year.
Yeah, well, what a beast we created there. Totally accidentally.
It's a nice one for joining me on this, Nick. I know you hate these things.
I try to do one a year or as few as possible.
And you've already done it.
I've already done one this year with Shaggy just a couple of months ago. So you've done pretty well to bend my arm on this one.
It dawned on me the other day when I was speaking to Rob Tezera that it was this week that we had the One More Time opening. And I thought, why aren't we doing a podcast about the history of One More Time Ibiza? Because all the it's built on nostalgia, isn't it?
Yeah,
start.
Yeah.
And I thought, because the podcast is going so well and we've had so many hours of people watching it, that I thought we'd just get a quick stripped back interview type of chat between you and me about how it all started, because a lot of people haven't got a clue of where it's come from and the struggles that we face. To kick off straight away, what makes One More Time stand out against other events in Ibiza, in your opinion?
I think the whole emphasis is just making it fun. It was never really meant to be a serious event. It wasn't something that was created as a business. It was like, oh well, we've got this kind of whole era to celebrate where you and I have been working and living in Ibiza. We've got loads of DJs that we know and love that aren't playing that much here these days. There's a whole 25 years of music to celebrate. Why don't we put something together and have a bit of fun with it and see where it goes? And I'm sure we'll go through it now, but it quickly went from an idea to a holiday to a weekly club brand.
Yeah, it did. It's all, a lot of people won't know who are not workers, but it started, I opened an Ibiza worker Facebook group for people to celebrate their years in Ibiza between 2000 and 2010. And that went viral within 3 days. And the Mixed Mag were talking about it and newspapers were talking about it. And I think a few weeks down the line, we were thinking of maybe how we're going to, there's obviously it's popular. And then an event just popped into my head. And at the time, and this, God's honest truth, I don't know if you remember this, I contacted you because I really didn't know anybody else on the island that I knew would do the job the way it needed to be done, because I'd always seen how you worked Cream, and I was always around that, and then how organized it was, and you always had like when you're in Kenya, and I remember working in Kenya for a year, and I always remember seeing you having your Tiesto meetings and your Cream meetings with the same team, and I just remember it being really, really organised, and you're having a massive year, and then Mo passing, and then and obviously Mo was your boss for years, wasn't he?
Yeah. Mo was he's my boss, he's my mentor and friend. Really.
Yeah, you learn off of him.
Learned a lot from him before I started managing Cream. Yeah, I was lucky enough to work on some great projects, and I guess we kind of built up an infrastructure, a team and a system on island that we could transfer from one project to another. I guess we'll probably talk about a few of those, but when you did call me at first and you were like, oh, I've started this worker page, it's really lively, I want to do an event. I actually remember you calling me. I remember being stood in my garden and straight away my mind got racing. I was like, well, it's a worker reunion. Well, it's a weekender, or maybe it's a week. Oh, great. We could bring back some old brands and they can host it, and we could take them to different venues that they used to love. And I remember we had this outpouring of ideas, didn't we? Straight away. It was a really fun mood board to put together, just throwing brands.
We had a year to organise, didn't we? Because we were too late for the 2018 season, if you remember, and it had to be 2019. And we went to October. And everyone was like, it's too late. It's not going to work. And I was just like, Oh, it will work because it's a good time of year, and it did.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean,
it,
it was one of those, we were kind of shooting in the dark, weren't we? We didn't really know how many people were going to want to come, but we knew that we had like a pool of 8,000 people there that you were reaching every day, sending photos and stories to each other. We knew there were going to be some people interested in coming, and in the end, a good few hundred came over. And I remember it was just really, really fun. It was fun programming it. It was fun being involved in it. It was fun seeing all the feedback from it, and then we had the starting of a brand, didn't we, really?
yeah, and we'd already booked up 2000. So we did 2019, and we'd already done the artwork and organized the week for 2020. And then what happened? COVID.
Yeah, people don't like to mention that word anymore, but yes, COVID struck, and like a lot of projects that we and other people had on Ireland, they obviously got paused for what, 2 years. But I
Yeah.
think we had a conversation, didn't we, at that point that, maybe this isn't a holiday brand, maybe it's not an annual reunion. Um, Maybe it is a weekly party where we could implement a lot of these ideas. And we can invite, old friends back, residents, workers, appeal to a few of the tourists and things like that. And then we decided that it's actually better to make it a weekly event as opposed to more of an annual reunion.
What did we do at first? The first year, did we just do? I'm trying to think now because I haven't got the greatest memory, as you'll probably know from watching some of these podcasts. But did we just do a few in May, or how did we do it? I know we did Kevin and Perry, obviously.
Yeah, I think we help run Paul van Dijk's brand Shine in
That's
Eden,
right.
and Paul normally tends to do peak season because of his diary, and there were lots of kind of early season Thursdays free in Eden, and I was speaking to Niall and the guys there, and they were like, we don't know what to put in before Shine starts. And I said, well, let us put together something with One More Time. Um, and I think that was just the start of it, really. And we've done that the last 3 or 4 years now. And every year we do more. This season gets longer for us. And this year, because of Paul van Dijk's diary being so busy, he isn't doing the full season with Shine. We've ended up taking double the amount of dates, including the peak season dates.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really grown year on year. But also we have the kind of One More Time presents side of things as well, don't we? Obviously Kevin and Perry being the major one there, and then also our involvement as kind of partners and promoters in other brands that we work with.
Yep. Exactly. And what roles do you play in?
I
You get the stressful part.
Well, no one gets to see the promoter side of things, really. I mean, my job really starts with it all before the previous season ends. We meet with the venues, we decide where we're going to be the following year, how many dates we want, what lineup we want. We go to ADE, Amsterdam Music Conference, and that's when we normally kind of start meeting with people and laying the foundations for the following season. And then we book the lineups to try and get it announced and on sale and selling as quickly as possible. And then, we've got to worry about everything on island, the relationships with the outlets and the venues and the staff, and selling the tickets and running the events, and worrying about all the money, banking it, paying the taxes, trying to get to profit. It's a whole long process from start to finish.
Which for everybody watching and listening, I have no part of. I just do the digital side of it. So when Nick's stressing out about that stuff, I'm stressing about other stuff, and that's what I think we make a fairly good team there.
Well, it works, doesn't it? I'm
Yeah, yeah.
completely useless when it comes to like social marketing, or I'm a technophobe. But when it comes to running things on island, yeah, we're here, and we've got a great team as well around me, which really helps implement everything that we put into place.
I mean, I couldn't do what you do. I know that. I could not. I used to do what you do, kind of, but not as legal because everything goes through the books these days, and it's just everything, and even PRing and thing. I think we were like trying to duck under the radar then back in the day, but
Yeah.
it's a lot more stricter and regulated now, isn't it?
Very regulated. I mean, yeah, employing staff is difficult at the best of times. It always was in Ibiza, to get
Now
teams
Brexit.
that are motivated and professional and are going to turn up on time. But now, yeah, obviously with Brexit, it made it very difficult. And also, you know, the cost of living out here, it's almost impossible for young workers to come and find somewhere to live these days. So that's made it hard. So, you know, one of the harder parts of our job as promoters is actually being able to get a team to go out and really promote these events. Yeah.
Yeah, where do the workers live nowadays? Do they just literally live in like dormitories?
Do you know what? I actually don't know. I don't ask. I'd rather not know. I mean, to be honest,
It
mate,
was bad enough when we were here, when I was there, above
my
the
first
shit.
time in Ibiza, mate, I was living, there was 8 of us. I was living on a sofa
Yeah.
bed in the living room. There was naughty stuff going on day and night. My best mate lived on a sofa on the balcony, you know, and that's just how it was. But it was really cheap to do that. Now it's really expensive to do that. And it's difficult. It's unfair on the generation, really.
Yeah, we had there was the old apartment above Strikers. It got converted into a block of flats, but it was a big apartment on the West End. And we had Billy, who was our landlord, and there was like dormitories. This is like 2002. There was the lads' room where it was about 10 beds, and there was the girls' room. And it was completely like you couldn't go into each other's room or anything like that. But nothing went missing, and it was cheap, and we all got on well, and we actually managed to get some sleep for work, because I think that's the one thing that we did work hard in our generation and play hard. I don't know whether that kind of exists as much now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Everyone's used to being influenced these days and getting everything for free. But no, I mean, to be fair, we have a good team. They work hard and they do a good job for us.
Yeah, you do have a talent for picking good team members. Can you remember how we picked the name One More Time?
Well, I actually couldn't, but I think it was when I saw, was it Gary last year?
It's a competition.
Yeah, I was in Rio to do another podcast or something, and he was filming it, and he said, "Do you want to hear something interesting? I actually helped pick your name for your brand."
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah. No, we did. I found, and the other 2 days ago, I found the original post. What do we call it? I will put it in this podcast. I'm not going to edit a lot over this, but I screenshotted it the other day, and I'll stick it in. It was like, what should we call the brand? And
Cool.
I found it from 2018, and it was just perfect, wasn't it? One more time.
Yeah, it's work. People like it. You know, it's nice, and it's
Great
a famous
track.
track, obviously. And you know, our socials have grown massively over time. They seem really
Yeah, yeah.
engaged with the content that we put out, and it all just seems to fit. It's lighthearted and fun. That's the thing with this brand. It was, like I said, it was never meant to be heavy and dark and serious. It was meant to be the more celebrating the more fun, uplifting side of the music scene in the last 20 odd years.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what we've noticed is people do come and have a party with us. It's not people don't come and take photos.
No.
I think that is one thing that's really it's the energy's still there, and you do see a lot of people complaining about there is a lot of parties that are just for image.
Yeah.
But we're kind of like slipped under the radar a little bit. But our demographic's surprising, because we can have anyone between 18 and 70 there. You know, like you're surprised sometimes when you call me up and you say we had a lot of youngsters in last night.
Yeah, we get a lot of stats, you know, from the back office of lots of the online outlets, and sometimes you're just like, wow, the average ticket buy was 24 online, but you know, we also had about 300 people turn up from, say, the over 40s group, and it was just a total range from 18 to 60, and I love that. I absolutely love the fact that you have no idea, like the age of the people that are going to be that are coming, but they're all having such an equally great time. And some people, it's their favorite songs. They've known them for 20 years, and some people haven't heard them before, and they're listening to like these proper amazing house records from, like, you know, the 90s for the first time. Like, wow, what's this music? And particularly with trance, we've seen that, you know, because trance hasn't been really that prevalent for the last 10 years or so. To a lot of these 18 to 25-year-olds coming in today, they haven't necessarily heard a lot of these tracks before, and we've kind of broken it to them, and I think that's actually been quite a nice thing to do with this brand.
And when did you first come to Ibiza? When was your first year?
I came in 99 and 2000 on like lads holidays, you know, kind of drink as much as you can and vomit and have a fight
Club
in the West
830 by
End.
any chance?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then
That brand comes up a lot in these podcasts, I tell you.
I think
Whether
it was
it's
actually 20s that I
oh,
came.
was it?
Yeah, it was very similar. And it was great. You know, we drank a lot. We went to a lot of the clubs. We had a lot of fun. And then I, um, I was going to university to do a music business degree. I was very interested in like the kind of whole business behind music. And during the summers, I didn't really want to return to Cornwall and work in like a pasty shop like my friends. Um, so I went to Ibiza and kind of, I was just a ticket seller really, and kind of managed to climb up some kind of invisible ladder of Ibiza.
Did you see the post yesterday from the Windmill?
Oh
It
yeah, yeah,
was,
yeah. I remember that day. So
yes,
I was the ticket seller at Bay Bar when that
yeah,
was on, and is it like 200 meters from Bay Bar, and it was the most tickets I'd ever sold in my life because of how close it was. And I remember
Radio
hearing,
1, yeah.
I think it was on Benny Benassi's Satisfaction. And I remember it just like reverberating across the water, the short stretch of water between the Windmill and Bay Bar. And I
Yeah.
was selling tickets then. I can literally travel back to that moment in time when I see that photo.
It was such a great venue. It only happened for 1 year. I think the noise just must have just flooded the whole of San Ann, and they got so many complaints. But yeah, it was only 1 year it was there, wasn't it?
Yeah, one or maybe even two. I don't know, but I remember that Windmill area did a couple of events whilst I was
Yeah,
young and selling tickets
because they
around
had Seb
that.
Fontaine playing. Judge Jules dropped the 3 or 5 greatest tunes of all time, and Cafe Del Mar, Yeke Yeke
Yeah.
was there. And I almost lost my job that night as well because
Well,
I turned up for work absolutely wired, and it wasn't a good move. But it was just back in the day, you could kind of do that though, couldn't you? You know, if the big Garlands things were on, the boss would kind of know. I know my boss, like Julian and Pepe, they always kind of turn the blind eye a little bit. But
yeah.
I don't know if does that happen now, or is it a bit more stricter?
It's very hard now to get staff, so you've got to be a little bit flexible with them. I mean, I remember one time, and I feel a bit bad now looking back, but I was one of the managers at Kenya, and I had a team of 8 PRs, and the whole team decided to fuck work off for the day and go to the shit party, and they all phoned me up like to kind of rub it in my face, and none of them were coming in, and they were all like wasted, and I had to sack them all on the spot, obviously, but then I had no team whatsoever, and I'm sure the next day they came back to work, and I had to take them back, but the perils of employing people in a beefer. You need to understand that they're here to party just as much as they are to work.
Yeah, yeah. The ship party was always a crazy. I never forget when they all they all used to cut because it was the ship party. For anyone who doesn't know what the ship party was, a charity event at the zoo where everyone went in fancy dress and raised lots of money for charity. All workers, 1,000 people there. And I'll never forget, they used to put the coaches coming back, didn't they? And everyone used to turn up for work, smashed, but still in their fancy dress.
Yeah.
And the West End, it was such a night because it was just everyone didn't know what they were doing, and the management were just like that. Oh my God. And they used to say that when the first ever shipwrecks started, because the first ever shipwrecks that we ever did were actually in the daytime. The first 3 were in the daytime, not in the morning. And so we were having 250 workers coming off the boat just before work, like 8, 9 o'clock after sunset, and straight into work. And people were banning people from going on the shipwrecks. And I remember, do you remember Will Pigeon?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Will. He was doing a Judgement Sunday, uh, uh, um, a team meeting outside the ship, on the benches outside the ship. But I lived above the ship, and I was earwigging downstairs. And Will's going, "Yep, I know it's shipwrecked tomorrow, and blah blah, but you still got to work and all this lot, blah." And he was giving him a right old lecture about you can go on it, but don't fuck your job up. And I was like, "Oh, don't listen to him." You don't have to worry about him. But the Judgement were obviously smashing it these days. So we've got this coming week, Jules back, funny enough.
I never worked for Judgement, but it ended up being a bit of a weekly thing for us, really. We used to go down because some of the DJs from Cream would play there, like Eddie Halliwell or whatever, would go down and support. And we became good friends with all the guys at Judgement, including Jules. And when we started One More Time, Jules just kind of became, part of that family, part of that picture, really, for us. And for the opening party, it made sense to bring back a proper Eden legend to help us kick things off. So yeah, that's what we're doing this week, and we're looking forward to it.
And are you looking forward to this summer or? You nervous? Lots of changes to the
It's
environment?
weird. I look forward to the summers. I mean, I get mentally tired thinking about the summers because we run like what 2 to 3 weekly events, which means lots of late nights, and it is tiring, obviously. So I always, when I think of the summer coming up, I think, God, it's going to be tiring, but it is exciting as well. You know, we've got some great brands we work with, great DJs, we work in great venues. We've got some really exciting one-off events. We've got a couple of new projects. Yeah, I am excited for the summer. I just kind of want to get going on it now, you know.
Yeah, I just the talking's done now. It's just we've got to just get it going and do what we do best. And did you, when you first come to Ibiza, did you think you'd be here all these years later?
Wow,
How
what a
many years now?
question.
20 odd years, isn't it? 25 years.
Well, I mean, 25 or 26 since my first lad's holiday. You know, I've worked here, I think, for 24. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't someone that had like a set out plan for life. Like, this is where I'm going to go at this age. This is where I'm going to go at this age. I mean, one thing I've always said is we're so lucky to have Ibiza in our lives. We found a little tiny speck of land in the middle of the world that is giving us a life and an opportunity to have a wonderful life, you know, careers and marriages and, you know, our homes here. We're so lucky to have Ibiza. I never planned it to be my place for my whole life, but, you know, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing if it was, really?
Yeah, and let's just pop back to one more time. You're the booker. Um, do you enjoy booking one the lineups for us? Because a lot of people do say when I've interviewed like Jonathan Ulysses and Tristan that with One More Time we get the music right, and it's not just about the just getting like a headliner right. We get the actual flow of the night right as well, and that
Yeah.
always comes into it when you're booking, doesn't it? 'Cause
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people might not really understand what, you know, how these things are done. I mean, there are many jobs within kind of electronic music, but booking, being the booker for a brand is sometimes a bit of a poison chalice, in that it's not easy, you know, because you're competing with so many other brands and venues for the same pool of talent. And obviously that just drives up the price of the talent a lot. And it's very hard to get the lineups you want a lot of the time. I mean, I was lucky enough to be one of the main bookers at the Cream Group for years. I helped, you know, book all the Cream Ibiza lineups, Cream stuff for the UK, some bits of Creamfield, some bit of Electric Daisy Carnival, EDC as well. So I'm quite an experienced booker, but booking did get quite difficult. With One More Time, however, we're very much decided and set on what our pool of talent is, because they have to play the exact sound that we're really into for the brand. So we've kind of got that pool of talent. We know every year that we want to give them like 2 or 3 gigs each. All the DJs that play for us are proper professionals, whether it's the biggest DJs or, you know, one of the residents. And then we hand select them. We decide who would warm up well for who could handle playing after who as well. We've got a very trusted resident in Vicky Devine as well, who's been fantastic for us.
yeah, she has.
And musically, we just make sure it flows from the minute it opens to the minute it closes. It seems to work.
And is there a balance between the classics and the new stuff, keeping things fresh? Or
Well, we've never said to any of the talent the music has to be from a certain period of the last 25 years. You know, we'd say a B for classics only, because they are tracks that are classics or are becoming classics or might be future classics. I mean, the best example of this actually is probably Paul Oakenfold last year when he played for us. His first 3 tracks he started with, I think it was like a Tale of Us track, a Camel Fat track, and a Rufus Du Sol track. And what he had done, he'd realised that there was a really young audience in there that night, and he wanted to hook them and keep them. But by the end of it, you know, there was Bullet in the Gun, there was Wide Open Space, there was you know, proper classics. It was a 3 hour journey. So
yeah, because he
musically,
plays extended, doesn't he? Is he? That was the extended set that he did for us.
Paul has to play extended, because if I give him an hour and a half, he will not leave the decks. I mean, we gave him an hour and a half before, and he was still on an hour later, and we had to cancel the next DJ set. So we've got to the point now we're like, Paul, you can play longer, but this is, you know, let's just agree to a 3 hour set. But that's a real treat anyway, because Paul's a proper legend in the game, and Paul's got so much music he wants to play. He needs that amount of time to be able to play it.
Yeah, so if you're watching and listening to this, remember that when you're coming this year, because I had an email from a couple that left early last year because they thought it was going to be Ibiza Classics only, and they said it wasn't that it was um we heard loads of modern music at first when he come on, and it's just like, but it was an extended set, and
Yeah,
they
I think they left after 25 minutes. And like I
yeah.
said, Paul's first three tracks, they're great tracks, but they aren't tracks from 20 years ago. They were tracks from the last 2 years. But we were very much soon into the era that they'd come to celebrate with us. I mean, the other thing as well, the genre, a lot of people were like, well, is it a trance night? And it's not a trance night. It's not exactly
No.
a house night. It's literally celebrating a really amazing era of electronic music. You know, sometimes there's some drum and bass tracks dropped in, you know, with some kind of more accessible kind of techno tracks get played, some great progressive music, you know, the kind of that wonderful Sasha and Digweed era of Renaissance. A lot of that music gets played by the earlier DJs. It's just a celebration of an era of music and Ibiza instead of being specifically genre led.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand how hard it is to put on an event every night in Ibiza, sorry, every week in Ibiza with so much else going on, and you do 3 or 4 of them. Is it getting harder?
I mean, it's hard. Obviously, there's 7 days in a week. There's about 10 venues here now that are open those 7 days. So, you know, there's 70 good choices for people to buy a ticket. People don't necessarily want to return to the same venue twice on their holiday. So you're then competing with the other 6 nights. People want to go out a lot in the day at the moment, which I totally understand. So they're fresh for the next day. Um, and there's a lot of the tickets are very expensive now. They don't have a lot of money left to go to other events. So there's so many different things to think about when you're putting these events on. So many things, so many obstacles, you know, to be able to deliver a successful event. We're very lucky to be able to pull them off to the level that we do.
Yeah, and we try and keep it affordable as well. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And
I mean,
and,
that
and
that's essential, mate. I mean, I think that's an important thing that we don't really shout about because I don't really like to make it look price led. But when we did come back with this brand as a weekly event, we were thinking, what are the elements that will take it back to that era? And the thing was the price. This was an era where the maximum ticket price was, you know, 30 to 40 euros, which I think is fair entry. We
yeah,
didn't want to start getting up to 70, 80 euros, but because we're realistic on the talent budget and things like that, we're able to keep it at a very reasonable price.
yeah, yeah. Because when I see some of the prices at other events now, I'm just like, oh my God, that's huge. But then you've got to realize how much they're also paying for the talent now. It is
Yeah.
through the roof.
Yeah, I mean it is. Look, if you're paying an artist, I mean honestly, some of the artists are getting like 400 to 500 grand for a night in certain venues here. You know, by the time you add production and promotion, all the staffing, you need to be you need to be selling a ticket at 100 euros really. But they can obviously make it up because they've got the bar money, they've got the VIP money, which is important, and they've got sponsorship money. Our model is very, very different. We kind of pay to put on our events, and then we take the risk, and then we take the door money. But we operate on very kind of tight budgets to make sure that it's got a chance
Yeah.
to come back the following year, you know.
I've probably spoken about this before. How many independents are there that really operate in Ibiza? Because it's a lot of corporates now, isn't it, that really operate the main.
I mean, a lot of the venues now, they are the promoters, you know, they put on the
Mm.
events themselves. Which makes sense because if you're a machine like the Night League, who are, you know, obviously phenomenal what they do, or Pasha, you don't necessarily need external promoters. You want to do it yourself. You know, you're confident taking the risk because you take the door, the bar, the VIP, and the sponsorship, so it works at that level. You know, um, independent promoters. I mean, there aren't that many. There's 3 or 4 of us companies that do it, and that they all work really hard and they all do really well, which is great. I mean, our company, I mean, the Supernova Group, which is what I started when I left Cream, the whole the whole point in the company really was to operate independently across several venues with several brands that weren't, overlapping each other. That was the
Yeah.
whole point in it. And we've managed to do that. We've built up to, I think we've got 12 solid projects now, that are all succeeding and not harming each other. We work across, I think, 5 or 6 different venues. And we are, 100% owned and financed by ourselves. We are truly independent. And that's something I'm quite proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. And it leads to a few sleepless nights.
You could
The
say that.
stress.
Well, I mean, look, if you could get through a pandemic, which pretty much was financially crippling and almost put us to bankruptcy and lots of other people to bankruptcy, if you can get through that unscathed, then I think you got a good chance. I mean, the good thing is we have 3 or 4 projects that are really, really strong. So we know we've kind of got the base finance covered every summer when we're coming into it. But all you need to do is lose money on a few shows in a row and
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
yourself in risky waters. So yeah, you do have a few sleepless nights along the way.
That's kind of a little bit why I wanted to do this podcast, is just to make people realize that, we get you get a few big losses and it puts you in danger. I mean, I suppose that the big corporates, they can write that off a little bit, but we can't. It really hits us if we get a really
Yeah.
a string of bad events, which we obviously let's go on to. I wanted just to cover a couple of our other events. We've got Kevin and Perry coming up, which is looking like another great year, which has happened by accident. And it was your idea with was it Brewer?
Yeah, I mean, well, what a beast we created there. I mean, totally accidentally. I mean, Mark Brewer has been my trusty right-hand man for as long as I can remember. We were together in an event. I think we are in a kitchen having an after party one night, and I don't know how it came up. But it's like, can you imagine doing a Kevin and Perry theme party in Amnesia? And suddenly this
The
light
penny
bulb.
dropped.
I remember being like, well, when's the anniversary of 20 years? And it was like, oh, it's in 2 years' time. Well, let's just do a party to celebrate that, like a reunion, a pilgrimage. Let's get the actors back. Let's get the DJs that performed it or on the soundtrack. That was the whole thing. I think I remember contacting you about it when we were talking about the One More Time holiday. And I was like, look, we've got a seed of an idea.
Yeah.
Then you came back with some great ideas as well. And then layer upon layer, we built it. Obviously, COVID happened, so we had to cancel it for 2 years. But by the time it came back, people were so ready to go clubbing. We delivered a couple of really good events. We did 2 that summer, one in June, one in September. I kind of see them as test events because I think we tried certain things. Some things worked better than others. Some things maybe didn't work as well. And now I feel like every event since has just got better and better and better. And now people are booking their annual holiday about it. It's insane, really, where we are.
And then obviously our affiliation with Godskitchen has come in quite useful this year as well, because we have the Godskitchen event that we're working with Mark and his team on.
Yeah.
So that's what 4 or 5 days later this year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Godskitchen, obviously, wow, what can you say about that brand? It's a brand I was always quite distant to, but I used to love going to their events, and it was obviously out the market for a good few years. And then when COVID happened, Mark Gillespie, who's an absolute, don in the game, who discovered Calvin Harris and manages many, many amazing artists, we had a chat during COVID, and he was like, look, I've got it now. Should we maybe look to do an event together? So we did a year to celebrate 25 years of the brand in Birmingham. We sold that out and it was an amazing event. And then we were like, well, why don't we want to celebrate 25 years since Godskitchen started in Amnesia, which is this year. Got an amazing lineup. It's selling really well. It's 4 days after Kevin and Perry. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really, really special event.
Excellent. And obviously, last thing we really need to cover is Clubland.
Yeah, I mean, Clubland, once again, I didn't feel particularly close to the brand when it was absolutely smashing it in Ibiza, but I remember going many times past Es Paradis when I think Simon Bolofsky had it, and the queues were down the road. And
Ridiculous,
I was like, wow, this night is a juggernaut, really. And then it had a few years out of the market, and what I like doing is bringing brands back and giving them a test event, and if they go well, doing more with them. We did a test event at the end of last summer, and it was really good. It was one of the busiest events we worked on last summer, and we thought, why don't we do a mini residency this year? And it's worked out well doing it on 3 dates. but people have a lot of love for that brand, and it's fun as well. There's nothing serious about it. It's just a fun event. And at this stage in my life in particular, I'm just quite interested in doing things that people
Yeah.
find fun and enjoyable,
Yeah, I don't think many of our events are seen as hugely serious, but I think that's where we get that element of people come and dance, and they keep their phones down, and there's not all that flashing their phones in the air and stuff like that. They really come to have a really good time, whether there's a few hundred people in there or thousands of people in Amnesia. We have all of our images and video. You can see that just by the lack of photos being taken. People are there to have fun, which is
Yeah.
what is the most important thing about. I think that's our ethos for the brand, really, isn't it? Just to keep it chilled and laid back.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything we do that's connected to One More Time, whether it's One More Time or One More Time Presents, these other brands that we work with, it's not making it too serious, not making it too expensive. It's about a customer experience, people walking away going, well, that was wicked. Can we do that again next year? That's where we're at with that, I think.
Cool. Listen, Nick, I know you're a very busy man. I'm going to ask you one more question, and it's called One More Tune, the podcast. What would be your one more tune of the night if you had to close down to say the closing party for Eden this year one more time? What would do you have a track that in mind that would?
Do you know what? There's so much amazing music over the last, 20 odd years, that era that we celebrate. Obviously, I've been so close to the trance scene.
Yeah,
It'd be hard
yeah.
not to pick something from that. Then again, some of my favorite music producers been more of a kind of a progressive sound. There's been so
You're
many
into
latest.
other music as well. You're into rock
Yeah,
and all sorts of music, aren't you?
yeah, I've got very
Personally.
diverse tastes, really. Not stuff you'd hear in a nightclub necessarily. But I've always loved a lot of the productions by Eric Prydz was always one of my favorite producers. I like a lot of the current producers now. It's lovely working with the boys Camel Fat. I really like what they do. Rufus Du
Uh-huh.
Sol, one of my favorite artists. Um, but I think it was the final track of the whole summer, a track that means a lot to me and probably lots of people and this island. I think maybe let's go for Robert Miles' Children, because it's such an incredibly epic, beautiful piece of music that I've had in my life since I think I was about 14 or 15, and
Mm.
I think I'd go for that one.
I know someone else has mentioned that on this podcast before, and I told them I remember exactly where I was where I heard that tune for the very first time,
Yeah.
and I think that when there are tracks like that. I remember when I was sent Camel Fat's Cola
Mm.
for the very first time before it was released, weeks before it was released, and I couldn't stop humming it the next day. And I rung up the guy who sent it to me and went, "This is going to be absolutely huge." And look what happened.
Yeah.
It just
With that
monster
particular
track.
track, it's quite funny. I was at Creamfields that summer, and me and my friend were laughing because every stage we walked past at some point over the 2 days, we're playing it. We were just literally like, cola again, cola again, cola again. And we're close to the boys as well. And I told
Yeah,
them that
yeah.
they were like, yeah, we're starting to get a little bit sick of it as well now. But it's such a legendary track. It's always hard to find what is a truly classic track from an era. Obviously, we're very close to that kind of 2000 and 2010 era. I find it hard to find what are the stone cold classics from the last few years, but I don't think many people could argue with Camel Fat Cola being one of them.
I couldn't get it out of my head the next day. Honestly, couldn't. So Nick, let's crack on Thursday. We've
Yeah,
got
very
our,
excited. So
our
after
opening
this
night.
call, I'm going to go and see the PR manager, check how the recruitment day's gone today, check in with the posters, make sure the posters are up, see what outlets are selling our tickets, have a call around with the main guys in Plaid and Bossa to make sure they're promoting us. We've got to catch up with the venue to make sure that everything's in place there. We need to agree everything from, worker deals to screen specs. We've got Emma that
Yes.
works for us, who's great. She's right now planning riders and everything. And
There's
yeah,
so many working parts, isn't there,
yeah,
that people just don't see, and I think that is overlooked, and that's kind of half the reason, again, why I wanted to do these sort of podcasts, so just for people to understand what goes on behind the scenes, because it's a scary amount of work. And I'm glad I do my bit and don't have to do your bit. And I think you feel the same about my bit.
Oh, mate, one hand washes the other. One half can exist without the other one, for sure, mate. But yeah,
Brilliant.
thanks for having us on, and yeah, let's get cracking, eh?
Let's get cracking. So opening on Thursday, One More Time 2025. Cheers, Nick, and I'll let you go, my friend.
All right.